Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brent Merz, the Chief Financial Officer for your cooperative. What we're going to talk about today are your financial statements. There's a few things that I'd want to point out about how our financial statement is different than what you've normally been seeing. Then we'll quickly look at the financials, and finally we'll look at a few charts to show the strength of the Garden City Co-op's balance sheet and what we've done in the past year. As you saw in the video, the very first, Garden City Co-op comes from very humble beginnings. And we're still a very humble group now, your employees as well as your board of directors. However, today's not a day to be humble. Today we're going to get up here and we're going to sing the praises of your co-op. And I'm going to tell you how well you guys are, how strong your cooperative is, and how proud I am to work for it because of the strength that it has and the reputation that it has. So we're going to toot our horn today. Today's the day to do that. The income statements, the first thing I want to talk about are the changes that you'll see and why we've done that. In the past, what you looked at, we had the financial statement that came down, and it had local earnings, and then it had the other earnings, and then finally the total number. We've been looking at this for a long time, trying to figure out a better way to show that made more sense for the way the Garden City Co-op does its business. And local earnings, while they're important to a point, really don't tell the story of the Garden City Co-op. What we want to show you is how the Garden City Co-op is able to generate cash, and by doing that, we're able to provide the services that you guys deserve and not be encumbered with worrying about so much about how much was local, how much came from here. Because to be honest with you, I think some of the decisions that the board has been looking at and making, if they're driven by local earnings, we never would have done things. If they were driven by local earnings, we wouldn't have built the pine mill facility, wouldn't have added grain storage, concrete storage in places that we have. We wouldn't have done a lot of things that we've done, so it didn't make a lot of sense to do that. The new format is still, there's two of them in your handout that you got. The first one is still GAAP standard. Just takes out the local earnings and puts it all together to come with one total. But that's really not the one I want to talk about today. The one we're going to talk about today is one that's in there, and it's a non-GAAP statement. By saying non-GAAP, I'm not saying that we monkeyed with numbers or anything like that. The number's the same. It's strictly a matter of how everything's organized. And we believe that the Garden City Co-op and the board of directors does it well, is that this is a statement that we look at for the cash generation that your cooperative provides through operations each year. So we're going to come down to a cash total there, and then finally we'll add back in the non-cash items as well as depreciation expense to come up with a total for the ending. Looking at the non-GAAP statement, we had total sales for the year of just over $311 million. Of that, $130 million came from the grain department. Not quite $23 million from supply, and then finally nearly $158 million from commercial, which is mostly transport loads of fuel. Gross margins off that's just over $19 million in cash, and other operating cash income is at $7.9 million, and that's storage, patronage that came in cash, investments that came in cash, etc. So total gross income in cash to your co-op was $26,946,896. Expenses for the year totaled $18.3 million. Of that, $9.77 million in personnel expense, $3.58 in fixed expenses. That doesn't include depreciation. And then operating expenses of nearly $5 million. And then we paid income tax, of $571,000 on the savings. So our net cash savings, get a little close to that. Net cash savings is $8,069,024. That's actual cash that we brought in after expenses. Non-cash items, deferred patronage dividends of $6.857 million, the majority of that being from CHS and United Suppliers. Deferred investment income is the income that we did not receive in cash from our two LLCs that we're involved in. Wind River Grain LLC and East Kansas Chemical LLC. We had depreciation expense of $3.3 million, and that number it's not skewed. but I can promise you next year that number is going to be bigger because of the fact that the ply mill facility and some of the other stuff that we had came online right at the end of the year, so there's not a full year's depreciation on that. So when that hits, next year's depreciation will be bigger. The number that I am very, very excited about, and I think you should be, and the rest of the management team and employees of the co-op are, total net savings of $12,874,389. That's the second biggest year ever for the Garden City Co-op, surpassed only by 2008, which was just an incredible year, just over $17 million. 2008 was a great grain year. 2013 was not a great grain year, and yet we're still able to churn out cash of over $8 million, as well as have a $12.8 million net savings. On the balance sheet, nothing's changed on that. The balance sheet, that's a picture in time of where the co-op is as of August 31st, 2013. And I think Nick said it best when he described the balance sheet as an accumulation of everything that's happened since the Garden City Co-op began in 1919 until August 31st of 2013. And you're going to see, or if you've looked at it, you can see our balance sheet is very strong. Very strong. We're very proud of it. We have total assets of $125,568,200. Of that, $45,593,399 is current assets, which will be turned to cash within the next 12 months. We have investments of $46,036,209. Over $30 million of that is stock in CHS. And then the book value of your property, plant, and equipment is at $33,938,592. Long-term liabilities, big portion of that is the term debt that we've taken on for the facilities that we've built and upgraded, $19,483,911. And finally, the members' equity, that's the amount that you own in your company, the stock that you have, $73,513,779. That's the boring black and white stuff that we'll talk about. Now we get to look at the fun stuff. Working capital, liquidity that your co-op has. This is what has allowed, given the bank faith in us to loan us money to build new facilities, to upgrade facilities. It's allowed us to make decisions that betters not only Garden City Co-op, but in turn benefits you on the farm. In 2000, the Garden City Co-op had $3.1 million in working capital. Of course, working capital is current assets minus current liabilities. In 2013, the year that just ended, we're at $13.02 million, an increase of almost $10 million in that time period. And remember, all this is being done at the same time that we've built over $28 million, or spent over $28 million in fixed assets since 2008. We've grown our balance sheet, and your working capital is very, very strong. Because of this liquidity that we have with our working capital, we're able to build the fixed assets either through financing with the bank because they've got confidence that we're going to be able to make the payments on it. As also, we have the ability to use cash if we need to. This next slide shows the total debt to the total equity. There's a baseline on there of 1, and anything that's under the baseline, the equity was less than the debt payments. Or excuse me, less than debt, not just debt payments. As you can see, since 2008, we've been above the line as your equity has grown tremendously during that period of time. Debt has increased as well, but not nearly as fast as the equity has. This chart right here shows the long-term debt that the co-op has had, I believe since 2000. The strong balance sheets allowed us to do this with the working capital and the balance sheet that we've had, to be able to borrow the money to go out over term, up to 10 years on some of the concrete, to build the facilities that you need to get the services and buy the equipment that we need to service your farms. In 2008, we had $9.7 million in term debt. At the end of 2013, we're at $19.48 million. That's an increase of a little under $10 million in term debt. But think about this. Since 2008, we've invested $28 million in facilities and equipment for your farms. And term debts went up $10 million of that. So we paid for a lot of that with earnings from the business that you guys do with us. An incredible amount of money. I see the banker down here turn white when he actually sees the actual amount, but it's okay. It's okay because this slide right here. This shows the percent of our long-term debt to the equity we have in the company. The bank requires us to be below 30%. That's one of the covenants that we need to meet. At the current year end, even with $19.48 million in term debt, we were at 26.5%. So we still got some dry powder to go out there if we need to borrow more term money to build more facilities, to do what we need to help your farms. So you can see since, other than 2007 when we were a little bit above the line, we've been well below the 30% covenants that we've had. So we've had dry powder for a long time, and we intend on keeping it. This slide right here shows you our ability to make those term payments. In 2008, 2013, we've averaged $3.9 million more in cash savings than we have had to make in principal payments. As you can see, there's a pretty good correlation going forward from when it started in 2002 up till about 2007, as the term payments and the cash savings were about on the same track there. Then beginning in 2007, when we started getting huge patronage dollars from CHS and some other things that we've done in the company, that changed and we started making much more cash than we had in term payments. That makes it a lot easier for us to make for your board to make the decisions that they need to make, once again, to help your farms by making your co-op stronger and providing the services that you need. This next slide is the net income slide. As you can see, other than 2008, this is the second largest year that your co-op's ever had. The red on there is the non-cash portion of it. In 2008, a large portion of the earnings were from non-cash. The blue is the cash portion of it. So not only is this the second largest year overall for your co-op, it's also the second largest year cash-wise, which isn't the same year as the second largest year overall. The second largest year overall for cash is actually 2010 at 8.0, or the highest one's in 2010 at $8.07 million. What this tells me is that the strategy that the board of directors and taken on by the management is working very well. And your cooperative is very strong. It will remain strong because of the decisions that they make and the balance sheet that we have to back up those decisions. I've got a couple more slides here, and then I'll get out of the way for John and Boyd. But this slide right here shows you the patronage departments that we have and the income that they made before, cash income before any administrative expenses were applied to it. The petroleum department made $3.72 million in cash, crop production $2.64 million, and grain right at $6 million. Or a little over $6 million in cash. Save the best slide for last because this is the one that's got the patronage rates and the patronage amounts on it. As you can see, we're going to pay out $5,126,834 in total patronage. Of that, 30% again, or $1,538,050 will be in cash, with the remainder in deferred patronage. The rates this year, we're very proud of them. We'll be able to pay 17.99 cents per bushel on wheat and soybeans, 16.79 cents per bushel on corn and milo. Storage, we're going to return to you 29.73% of the storage that you paid us. Crop production, 5.58% on all your inputs. Petroleum to ag producers, that's the farmers that we had delivered or your tanker loads that you took, 7.36%. And finally, commercial petroleum at 4.56%. So, as I said at the beginning, today is not a day to be humble. Today's a day to be very, very proud of your co-op. What it's able to accomplish last year in a year with a drought, with lower grain intakes, and tremendous patronage being paid back to you. So thank you, thank everyone for the business that you do with your co-op. It is truly appreciated. We look forward to serving you in the future. If anyone has any questions on the financial statements, be more than happy to answer them. You can ask now. I'll be in the back later. You can talk to John, Nick, or myself, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Are there any at this time? Thank you very much for letting me serve you, and I look forward to the future. Thanks.